Hi, I'm Graham from Second Era of Moles, and if you clicked on this video accidentally, 90 seconds is all I ever ask. Welcome back to another week that was on Pokemon Masters X. It was week 3 in Unova this week. Can you believe how quickly that's been going? There's been a few things going on this week. So we've had the Champion Stadium, we've had the Trial on the Isles event ongoing, we've started another egg event, there's a new legendary arena for us all to try out, you've still got the Palkia event ongoing, so plenty to sink your teeth into this week. And we're going to start with the Champion Stadium. So for round 1 this week, your condition is that you get a physical attack reduction. I thought it made sense on this one to take on Marshall because he's got fighting types and they're going to be using mostly physical attacks. So I went into this one with a team of Musharna, Alakazam and Swanna. I originally went into there with Mewtwo instead of Swanna because I thought, oh yeah, get the big bad 150 in there with his Psychic, but no, it just wouldn't work. There was no one who could really tank for the team. Mewtwo is a little bit glassy. I'm not sure that he has the stats necessary to really go to work on the Masters mode, so he's still going to be good for Battle Villa, but Masters mode I think is beyond him, at least until he gets a grid where you can raise some of his stats or like get him to be a Sync Nuker or something like that. So in the end I had to swap him out for the old faithful Skylar and Swanna, because Skylar's a good tank, she can get those defensive buffs in there for you, and she can do some healing. So as usual, when you've got Swanna in your team, you want to use her for the first sync move. Up until then you're going to be using Take Flight to get those speed and defense boosts. I would recommend with your Alakazam unit on this one not using Reflect in the first phase of the game. Your physical attack reduction is already there, you're not going to get an additional one on top of that from using Reflect, and it's a 3-bar move and you have limited move points for it, so it's not using that until at least after your first sync move. The real MVP of this stage though is Musharna and Bianca. So with her you want to set Psychic Terrain first, then you want to use You Snooze You Lose to raise the stats. Hopefully you're going to get a move point refresh with that as well, so you can use it 3 times, and the reason you want to do that is for stored power. So stored power by itself isn't all that powerful, but if you raise your stats, the move is boosted for every stat raise you get. So if you've got +6 on 3 categories, that adds up and it outputs a hell of a lot of damage. So Musharna really carried the round in this one for me. And it could have been even better. Sometimes I get so caught up with doing all that damage that I forget that a sync move is coming up and I forget to reset Psychic Terrain. So you're going to want to be aware of your sync countdown, and when you see it's getting near to a sync move, you want to use your last move for Musharna before that to reset your Psychic Terrain. As with Electric Terrain last week, you're not going to get 2 sync moves out of it unless you're using like Breathtaking or Propulsion, and even then it's going to be a close run thing. And on this one I wasn't. If you want to raise Musharna's stats even more and you've got a couple of move points for it, you can use Sixth Sense with Alakazam. That'll boost her accuracy, which is a boost you don't get from You Snooze You Lose, and it becomes even more powerful. So I talked a little bit about Reflect earlier. Where it really comes in handy is mitigating the damage from Hammer Arm. So Hammer Arm is Conkeldurr's big attack. It does a lot of damage, and if you get a crit hit go against you for it, then Conkeldurr can one-shot anyone on your team, including Swanna, which, don't need me to tell you, is quite an achievement. So I didn't do this on the first attempt, it took me a few attempts to get it right. I finally stumbled onto the strategy of taking out the 2 side Pokemon first, because after the Pokemon in the middle faints, they're going to be using Rock Slide, which can take out your entire team in 2, maybe 3 moves if you're lucky, and Musharna does put out a lot of damage, but it's not going to be able to one-shot that one and one-shot that one. So you take out the 2 sides first and then go for the middle. And if you get some good rolls with your refreshes on your potions and your sixth sense, and you're smart about your targeting, the round should be yours. The only additional thing that might cause you some consternation is Fire Punch. There's a couple of them that will use Fire Punch on you, and if that causes burn damage to Swanna, it's going to put you behind the 8 ball a bit, and it might even scupper you around, because that burn damage is going to slowly wear her down if you're using Gust to keep the sync countdown going down, and that's going to make you use up your potions more quickly. Or you can refrain from using any moves at all, but then your sync move isn't getting close as quickly, and the other team can use sync moves more often on you. But hopefully you'll avoid that. If you need to, you can put Flameproof onto Swanna, and that will get rid of the problem altogether. On to round 2, and your condition for this one is that status conditions are more likely to take effect, do more damage, and last for longer. I chose to take on Grimsley with this one because he's weak to bug types, and for me, bug types equals Viola and Masquerain equals trap. So I went with a poison trap strategy. So what your poison trap strategy is, you have someone that can cause poison and someone that can cause trap. You apply that to all of the enemy Pokemon. You choose as many of the conditions as you can that raise both HP and defense. You don't want to be raising attack at all. I sometimes chuck crit hit protection in there as well for an extra 150. And you want your third Pokemon to be someone tanky, hopefully with a little bit of healing as well. And you just keep absorbing damage while the enemy attacks you, does damage to itself. Your own attacks aren't going to do very much because of that boost to the HP and to the defense, but that's not the idea. You're kind of sitting back, letting them work themselves into a poison and trap frenzy where they're taking much more damage each round from those status conditions than they're doing back to you. And the reason this strategy is so appealing is it doesn't require rare, high-powered Pokemon. You can do it with free units from the game, like Viola, like Koga, 3-star units like Janine, Lucy can do it as well. Wallace, these Pokemon that have Trap and Poison aren't necessarily rare. It doesn't require any fancy timing. You don't really have to play around with the conditions you're setting very much. There's a bit of flexibility on how you can do it as well. So you can do Poison Trap, you can do a Status Stall, which is where you put status conditions on and either have Pokemon that have high evasiveness or can self-heal. So you're keeping yourself topped up while they're taking lots of damage. You could maybe even chuck a Sync Nuker in there, someone like Barry who's only got a 1-bar move and then does lots of damage off of his Sync move. If there's interest, maybe one week I'll try and do a poison strategy on each of the different rounds. Let me know if you'd like to see that in the comments and I'll give it a go. I think I've got the units to do it, so we'll see. But back to the battle at hand. I initially went into this one with a team of the player with Pikachu, Viola and Masquerain, and Burr with Leavenny, but I wasn't really getting much out of Burr, and so I subbed him in for Koga. So my final team was Koga, the player, and Pikachu and Viola. And the strategy is simple. You set Poison with Koga, you set Trap with Viola, you raise the evasiveness of all of your Pokemon using Koga's trainer moves, you use healing with Pikachu, hope for some good rolls on endurance, and you just watch the enemy team tire itself out and faint. So the good news is that Poison and Trap do huge damage to the side 2. It will take them out in 3 moves, 2 if you're lucky, and for me the only Pokemon that fainted was Koga. I got a little bit lucky on some potion refreshes and I got a couple of unyieldings on Pikachu as well. The one move that you want to watch out for from Lipod is Iron Tail. That can hit you very, very hard. It can one-shot your Pikachu, so if you've got endurance on, you want to queue up a potion after it. If you don't have endurance, you've got to pray that it misses or something like that. But if you get some get just a smidge of luck. You don't need very much. You should be able to complete this round with not very many problems. I have seen some comments online about people struggling to do a poison trap strategy with Grimsley, so from what I'm seeing it could be the toughest round this week. And he has Lesson Poison and Lesson Trap 9, which means that your poison and your trap don't do a huge amount of damage. It takes slightly longer than it would in previous weeks. For round 3 this week, your condition is don't let any of your sync pairs faint. If you do, everyone else on your team gets a stat reduction. So I chose to go up against Shauntal this week, and because she's weak to water, my team was Blue with Blastoise, Starmie and Misty, and Barry with Empoleon. And the strategy should be obvious with this one. You sync first with Blue and Blastoise to get the team endurance, and then after that you sync bomb with Barry. Misty is in there for a bit of healing and evasiveness with Catch Us If You Can and a special defense. Blastoise gives you normal defense, so that works well together. Barry raises speed, he has Bubble and Bubble Beam, which aren't expensive moves to use. Blue also has To The Top, which can keep your move bar going up and down very quickly. Another good thing about Barry is that he has full heals on him. You're going to need that in this battle because Shauntal will try and inflict burn on you, either with Heat Wave or Will of the Wisp, and I think she has Go Viral as well, which means if one of them gets burned, they all have a chance of getting burned. So you can get round that by investing some lucky skills in Flameproof. I managed to do it first time, so I didn't have to come out and resort to that, but if you weren't quite as lucky as I was, that's a strategy that you can try and use there. By the end of it, I was only using moves with Barry because both Starmie and Blastoise had already been burned, and I didn't want to be taking that extra move when you've got Barry outputting so much damage. So yeah, I was holding off on using those two because I didn't want the burn damage to be kicking me in the teeth. I really like the synergy of this team, to use a tiny bit of a pretentious term, that you get both kinds of defense boosts with your two supports. You get a bit of evasiveness, you get a bit of healing, you get someone with a really strong sync move, you get team endurance, you get a move gauge boost, you get speed boosts in the middle, so it all works together really well. Your alternative to this is maybe you could chuck Palkia in there, like I did on the hard mode last week, because his Hydro Pump is going to hit really hard. Other than that, you could maybe go for a rain team. I haven't really invested in a rainfall team because I haven't had May and Swampert for very long, and she's the main sort of rain setter. I haven't got round to looking at grids and trying to put all those together. So for round 4 then, your condition is that you get a sync move countdown reduction. You start at 5 rather than 9. The team I chose for this one was Xerneas, Mew and Lycanroc. You're going against Caitlin for this one, as she's the 4th one. I started off with Heliolisk and Karen in my team, as well as Xerneas, but Karen really doesn't do enough damage, even as a dark type striker in this one, to be worth it. I've read somewhere that Moshana has very high special defense, so this is probably why, because both Dark Pulse and Snarl are special type moves. Her only physical attack is Bite, and that goes away once you use your sync move. Heliolisk I took in there to reduce the accuracy. I thought if she's using stored power, I want to be reducing her stats as much as I can, but you know what it's like, you reduce their accuracy down to -6, and I think I tried 3 battles and they missed 4 times in total, so it just isn't worth it. You lower speed as well, but again, it's not cutting the mustard. And so to get round this, I thought I've got to go in with a physical attacker. My highest physical attacker is Olivia with Lycanroc, so I whacked her in the middle. I took Mew in with me for his Unfortuitous 9, which will always lower one of the opposing Pokemon stats, and Xerneas is in there for healing and raising special attack and all of the lovely things that he does every time. And because you're relying on Mew to lower stats, you don't want to choose no stats reductions as one of your conditions. I had to have a bit of a play around before I found a list of conditions that worked for me, but eventually I went in with a strategy of Mew lowers your stats, you have Lycanroc in the middle using Stone Edge to do a lot of physical damage, Xerneas is doing either Dazzling Gleam, Moonbeam or Hornleech to restore its own HP. You've got the World is Vast in there as well to increase the speed of the move gauge as well. Xerneas sinks first to get that +6 speed boost for everyone, and also physical attack that does for Mew and Xerneas as well. Your move gauge is moving pretty quickly then, so you can afford to use a Swift, a Stone Edge and a Hornleech most turns because you're going to have enough time for it to refill. So if you've properly lowered the stats, stored power shouldn't be doing too much damage to you. You should be able to survive long enough with Xerneas and Mew for Lycanroc to do a significant amount of damage and take down Musharna. Your two side Pokemon aren't going to be any match for Xerneas. By this stage, his Hornleech should be doing more damage to them and giving him more healing than they can put onto him, so he's going to outpace them. They're going to be attacks that hit all three of your Pokemon, so Mew and Lycanroc are likely to faint because they're going to get hit by attacks and they don't have any of their own healing, but that doesn't matter because Xerneas is just going to be able to put his antlers up and charge. God, that was weird. Why did I do that? But yeah, in the end, I was toying with them a little bit, like a cat with a mouse, because I was using Moonbeam when they didn't have an attack queued up, and then Hornleech after they hit me, and after one move on Hornleech, I got all of my HP back. So yeah, Xerneas is just going to dominate the other two. You want to get the World is Vast in your first couple of moves with Xerneas. For this one, I chose to take an HP reduction, and so you want to get that healing for all of your sync pairs going on as quickly as possible, so that when it comes to sync moves, you've already built up a bit more of your health and you're able to keep building it up. If you're lucky and you get a refresh on that, so you get an extra crack at it, you should have no problems. And having beaten the Elite Four, you get to have a crack at Champion Iris. The condition that comes with her is a special attack increase. I chose to have the optional condition of a sync move countdown as well. And my team around that was Jasmine and Steelix, Brock and Onyx, and the player with Solgaleo. I don't really trust any of the out-and-out fighting types that I have in Champion Stadium. They're a bit glassy and I can't rely on them to do the damage output that I really need. I know a lot of people like Karina and Lucario in there, but for me it just doesn't work when I try to use them. And so I went with a unit that I haven't been using very much lately in Solgaleo. I didn't realise that the Focus Blast that it uses is a special attack type move, which is good in this round because Iris is going to raise defense and try and raise physical attack reductions as and when she can. And so the order that you go in with is Steelix tanks and is targeted first, and then Onyx, and then Solgaleo. You want to use your trainer move with Solgaleo even though it takes up 3 bars. It doesn't really matter because Onyx is going to be using Rock Hard Determination, Steelix is going to be using X Defense All, and no one else is really using the move gauge when you do that. So I was using Jasmine and Steelix for the sync moves on this one. There's 2 reasons for that. One is she gets a bit of health back every time she syncs if you've got the grid set up that way, and 2, you get a full refill of your move gauge, which is always helpful if you've got Solgaleo in there using a 3-bar move every turn. I started off with a special attack reduction as one of my conditions, and it was only when I realised Focus Blast was a special type move I took that off, and the next time I tried it I was able to win the battle. Initially I had Onyx as the first target. I thought, well, he's got high defense and he's got potions, it makes sense. But it didn't work that way. He wasn't tanking quite enough. I think some of the moves were special type moves, so the defense raises didn't really help very much there. But when I switched around Steelix and Onyx, I had a lot more success. After Hydreigon faints, you're going to have the two-side ones and they're going to use moves that do a lot of damage. So my advice would be take those two out first, because they're going to wreck your team in 2, maybe 3 moves after Hydreigon faints if you haven't taken them out already. I will admit I got a few unyieldings in there, which was a bit lucky on the time that I completed it. The main thing you want to watch out for is Hydreigon's going to use 2 moves, Dragon Breath and Dragon Pulse. Dragon Breath is going to do a little bit of damage. It's not going to be too much of a worry. Dragon Pulse is going to do a lot of damage. If you get hit by one of them, it could take you out in one shot. So you want to be wary of that and have a potion on standby if you see one of those queued up. It might take you a few attempts to do, but hopefully you'll feel that each time you get close and you're just, one attempt away from doing it. And that's Masters Mode for another week. 7.5k points, all of the glorious rewards that come with it. You can take some of the conditions out. Hopefully you'll have seen them beside me this entire time. And job done. We're still going with Trials on the Isle this week. I've got to say, I feel like the daily super hard battle is getting even harder. The past few days it's taken me sort of 3, maybe even 4 attempts to get through it. I think the major change I made was syncing with Pikachu. It does a lot more damage, but you also lose an opportunity to use a potion if you sync with Pikachu, and at times you're going to need it because Earth Power is going to hit you hard, Dragon Pulse is going to hit you hard, Psybeam is going to do enough damage to make you a little sweaty. So I don't know, I'll look back on that and see if it's working for me, maybe go back to using Mudsdale if it's not. But once you've collected all of the rewards, you might want to keep playing because you can pick up a fair amount of 3-star tickets from this one. There's going to be one on every map that you complete after you've collected all the rewards. I think the first one I got had a 3-star and a 4-star on it. I can't believe my lucky stars! And as promised last week, I'm going to talk through the Full Force battle. Now, the first round I thought I'd get maybe a little bit creative, so the first team I went with was Erica and Vileplume, Rosa and Serperia, and Barry and Empoleon. I talk about Barry a lot because he is a very effective unit. I'd heard a lot of good things about Erica online, so I thought, let's see what all the fuss is about. But on reflection, I think a lot of those involved Sun teams because she can do Sun healing, and I didn't have anyone to set Sun for her in this team. So Earthquake hit me pretty hard, Erica didn't last very long at all, and I'd maybe cleared the first wave with Barry and Rosa before they fainted. So I went in with a grass team the second time round of Torterra, Meganium and Sceptile, similar to the Champion Stadium I did a couple of weeks ago with those 3, and they just went to work. So Torterra raises defense, Meganium sets Sun, Sceptile does Leaf Storm. In this one you're more free to use Seed Bomb because you've got all 6 bars of your move gauge rather than in the Champion Stadium where I'm only rolling with 4. And they did an admirable job. They put their hard hats on and they went to work. So for round 2, I thought I'm going to take the lessons that I've learnt from the previous round, and I ditched Vileplume. I put Rosa and Serperia in as the first target, and I went with Torterra as second. So you get that special defense boost, you get X special attack with Rosa, you have Barry doing his thing as before, and it was a very effective team. I had Rosa sync first because she's 6x and she gives that extra stats boost, and then Barry syncing after that. You've got him using Bubble most of the time, which is a 1-bar move, which means you can use Giga Drain and Seed Bomb to the ones that are weak to grass types, and that works pretty damn effectively, especially if you're getting those attack boosts from Torterra's passive. So ideally you sync first with Rosa. I forgot that she was 6x, so I synced first with Barry, but I used her on the second sync to get that boost anyway, and it didn't cost me the battle because the only one that fainted was Rosa, and then Torterra and Barry managed to wipe the rest of the teams out. So you've also got Good as New, which will restore all of the HP to a Pokemon. If you see that Serperia is getting low, you can use that to extend her lifetime a bit more. And it was a bit of a challenge, but it was one that I was able to overcome. And once you've done both of those, you get your shiny medal, you can complete your collection, you can sweep the decks and make it look shiny. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Moana recently. That's where that came from. So there are 2 new events this week. You get an Egg Week, which focuses on water and electric types. It doesn't cost you any stamina. If you defeat it and you're able to use skip tickets on there, all it costs you is skip tickets, and the game gives them to you, like, I can't believe you get them here, there, you get them everywhere, so you don't really use anything by using a lot of them. You get an extra egg incubator as well, so it's worth it to try and hatch a few new Pokemon, and you know, even if you don't want them in the end, you can always swap them for egg research tickets. The other new event is we've got a new opponent in the Legendary Arena. This week it's Tornadus, the big mean green machine. Oh, I like that. And Tornadus is weak to electric types, so I feel like for me this is going to be a case of using Volkner, Raichu and Heliolisk, and I've been able to clear the first 2 rounds of it already. I'll go into more detail on it next week, but let's just say that I've not had any of my Pokemon faints so far. So thank you for making it well beyond the 90-second mark. That's a grand achievement. If I was able to, I would give you a medal for your Pokemon Masters collection. In exchange, all I ask is that you follow me on Twitter, you subscribe to the channel for next week's Pokemon Masters review. We'll have the Champion Stadium for next week with the new conditions, with the refresh. I'll also go into more detail on how to defeat Tornadus. So hopefully you'll join me for that. But thank you very much for watching this one, and goodbye.